beauty. All right, here we go. Episode 6, baby. The West Loop coming at ya. This is Kale, your host, here with Cam here.
Yo, it's Cam.
Yeah, episode 6. We're here back in the new year.
6? This is episode 6 already. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Time flies.
just trucking along. But yeah, it's been quite a fucking week. How you been doing?
Good. I can't complain. It's been a good week on my part. Got the weekend off, so
Ooh,
ready to record and start the weekend.
nice.
But yeah, it's been a hell of a fucking week, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure there's like one thing on everybody's mind. We'll get into that later, but
Yeah.
let's kick her off as we always do with 93 to Infinity. We're still playing with this segment. I don't know. We're narcissistic millennials, and we like to talk about ourselves and our experiences, and that's kind of what this is kind of meant to. We try to corral those indulgent, selfish kind of takes into this little segment, but I kind of like thinking of it as just like whether it's nostalgia stuff, like remembering things that we lived through, like the concerned children advertisers PSAs, or what I'm kind of thinking maybe we should move it to is just like picking out like big moments that we've all lived through and kind of like reflecting on them.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's been kind of the focus the last few, where we
Yeah.
don't have like a whole general idea on the 93 to Infinity, but we talk about like big things that have happened, and which is cool too, because I think that's probably more people can relate to that and understand those events.
I think so, yeah. And so what I've got for this week in history during the reign of our march from 93 to Infinity is on January 9th in 2001, Apple launched iTunes. And so this was probably a little bit of a slow burn, but I think it's not an
Yeah,
unrest like that's like a harbinger for the fucking music industry, man. Like
2001, like that's crazy how early that is. Because like
mhm.
thinking to when I started using iTunes, now I know I was pretty late to it because I didn't have an iPod for a very long time. Well, I shouldn't say a very long time. Like my first one, I know you had the Nano before I did, and I think I had the Generation Nano maybe one or two after you.
Yeah, I got a pretty early Nano, but that was my first iPod, yeah.
And so, like, to me, before then, there was no use to having iTunes. Because I had what was it? JVC? Is that?
Sounds that's definitely a tech company.
Yeah, yeah, it was a JVC MP3 player that I just, like, it popped up a folder, and then I would click and drag my pirated music over
Yeah,
to the.
that's all I did. Yeah, it was basically like a flash drive, right? You just drag your shit
Yeah,
over. Yeah,
yeah, so
drag
I don't think I
LimeWire.
had iTunes until I actually had the iPod.
Same, yeah.
But, yeah, no, man, iTunes it's huge. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like the program itself, like, I mean, there was probably how many MP3 players already that existed, probably mostly open source. But I think like the iTunes Store, I don't know if that launched with it. I think that would have probably a little later, but that's what really kind of
Oh, yeah.
disrupted the music industry was just like the idea of buying like individual songs or just buying music digitally at all was like
Yeah, because I guess like what was before that, like Napster.
yeah, well, like they had, yeah, I mean that was kind of them. I think Napster was the biggest one, but I'm sure there's a million like file sharing
Yeah,
platforms that
yeah, oh, absolutely. But I mean, and then the biggest thing I think at this time was the idea of trying to come up with some sort of platform where people would be motivated to do it legally.
yeah,
Because I
I think
think
that was the
so
big
many
part.
people, and and as we learned, that wasn't the answer. Like now we're kind of in that era of trying to get people to finally stop. Which I mean, I know I'm sure in probably some ways it's more than ever, but I think the streaming idea of things has more so stopped pirating of music.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's
And
the whole interesting. I mean, I guess it's kind of the same in the sense that like, I mean, with iTunes DRM, like that was kind of like the biggest like. I guess iTunes itself was a huge anti-piracy deal, right? And so, whether it was like the actual like anti-piracy software, like the digital rights management stuff that they brought in, or
mhm. Well, I feel like these artists were probably making a hell of a lot more money off of just their sales on iTunes than they were from like Apple Music.
oh yeah, definitely. Well, because that's the thing, right? So actually, I'm just gonna read this bit from the history on this day in history article. But yeah, Apple founder Steve Jobs is credited with iTunes' success as a music marketplace. Seeing that music was easier to access than ever, but that record labels were losing money due to internet piracy, Jobs made a deal with the 5 major record labels to sell their content via iTunes. The fact that it was above board and profitable for the music industry, combined with the cultural cachet of its companion product, the iPod, made iTunes an unqualified success. So I think that was probably the bargain, right? Like they're probably taking anything over nothing, right? Like they're just bleeding money because of the advent of online piracy. So like
Yeah,
I
and
think, and so I think that's the slow march, right? Like you got Apple kind of like, okay, well you're not going to make as much money as you did selling like records traditionally, but you're making something rather than nothing. And now we're kind of in the same spot with streaming versus that, right? Like okay, sure you're getting pennies
totally.
on Spotify, but at least it's something. Like
Yeah, well, and I think that's probably. I mean, not that Apple. Well, I mean, they revolutionized this sector in some ways, even though I'm sure it was copying others. I think on the streaming side they didn't. Like I think Spotify beat them to it, and then they just kind of copied Spotify,
I
which I
think a little
know
bit, yeah.
they probably copied Napster or something else. But I feel like iTunes was like by far the most popular downloading program for music, and like obviously then it moved into movies and TV. I honestly don't know. Like when it first launched, was it just music?
With
Being with the
iTunes,
name, I would assume it was just music to start. Yeah.
I think the biggest
But
one was music. I don't think like people like everybody you knew was like, holy shit, have you heard of Napster? Have you heard of LimeWire? Like everybody was like, I'm like, oh, I can get all the music I want for free. Whereas like the idea of like pirating movies and TV is like a little more niche kind of.
totally, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember pirating music at freaking like 12,
Yeah, dude.
like even younger probably.
I did not have sexual relations with that.
Yes.
Fuck, I hated
LimeWire,
that.
man. Or I think it was called Morpheus was my first one,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
then yeah, I went to LimeWire shortly after.
Or there was
Which I
Kazaa.
still used iTunes. I just imported all that music into my
You
iTunes
know, that's
after
what's
the
funny,
fact.
right? Like,
Yeah,
and then it got to
but
the point where I was willing to like, and that's what kind of that's how they kind of frequently shoot themselves in the foot with this. Is it's like they make it so difficult for like the above board legal way to work. So it's just like even for things like I remember I was big on iTunes because I was like I want to pay for everything I have, and I
yeah,
had like a pretty good legit iTunes music library kind of brewing up. And then I remember when the 360 came out, it was such a cool idea that I could just like put music on my hard drive and play music while I'm doing other shit, like while I'm gaming. But then, of course, because of all the DRM anti piracy stuff, I couldn't play my iTunes legally purchased music on my Xbox because it wasn't like compatible. So I'm like, well, fuck that. I'm just gonna download all this shit for free and throw it on there. Then like,
yeah. Yeah, I definitely went through a phase where I was pirating for a while, and then I was like, no, I'm gonna start buying, and then I bought some music for a while, and then I went back to kind of pirating. But yeah, no, I definitely went through that phase where I purchased on iTunes a bit. To me, like I know we've talked about this recently, I've gone more so to purchasing now TV shows and movies on there. Like
mm-hmm.
I don't know, like I like a lot of independent films and stuff like that. So I know I could go and purchase it on VHS or not
Yeah,
VHS. Jeez, what fucking year is it on a DVD or Blu-ray? um,
gonna buy
but
the Peanut Butter Falcon on VHS.
yeah, there we go. But I don't know. I just like it's there. I find a lot of the independent films like you can't find them on Amazon to purchase, and if you
Mm-hmm.
do, like they're quite expensive. So I just purchase it on iTunes, and then I have a copy of it through like their app on most smart TVs now. You can just utilize their app. So
Yeah, that's what's nice. Oh, and that's the thing is that like everything is slowly getting more integrated. It's weird that we had like through the 2000s, like the early 2010s. I feel like it's only recently that everything is kind of getting more and more streamlined. The fact that I can just stream anything to my fucking
Yeah,
Chromecast or whatever, and there's an app on everything. Like even for something like the Switch, like they had a hard time getting Netflix on there, did they not? Like
they still don't have Netflix.
really on Switch?
They actually announced Netflix announced yesterday that they're stopping their app on the 3DS and the Nintendo Wii U,
Hmm.
and like everyone's response to that was like in preparation for it to be on the Switch. I don't know. Like there was a part of me that was like thinking about this, but I'm like, I also think that we live in an era where we probably don't need that access to a lot of these things. Like, if you're a family that can afford a Switch, chances are you have a smart TV, you have another game console that can have it, or you have like a Roku or like something that would have the app on it. Like, I don't even, I get the portability side of it where it's just like, well,
Mm,
the Switch is
mm-hmm.
portable. I could watch Netflix on the go, but
You can do it on your phone
I
too,
don't know.
right?
I think it's a little bit, to me, a bit overrated. Like, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense, but I'm sure there's definitely a market for it, and I don't understand.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I guess that's just kind of an anomaly though. Like it is weird that it was rare to have your things work in the case of like my iTunes shit going on my Xbox, but yeah, now I can just
well, yeah, no, like I have a
have
Samsung
Spotify streaming on my
TV.
Xbox. Like,
Yeah, you can download a Spotify app, or I can download the Apple TV app, and then I have access to my whole iTunes library. I have access to Apple TV Plus, or
mm-hmm.
just even like renting, because like that was a big thing too. I think with iTunes, is the idea of renting
That's
a
true too.
movie. Like that was I know they lasted a lot longer than 2001, but I'm sure iTunes was a big contributing factor. And then you had things like Netflix and stuff that came in that killed like movie rental companies for sure.
Yeah.
Because to us as Canadians, we never really had access to Netflix until it became like a streaming platform. I
Yeah, I
never
know. That's the
like
thing. People always make these jokes about like, do you remember when Netflix used to be sold in the mail? And it's like that's like a purely American thing. Like it's
yeah,
kind of only
that
a
was like I remember those weird machines in the cities where they like you could like
oh Redbox.
yeah, those
Yeah, yeah.
I briefly remember those, but I feel like even those probably finally came to us at a pretty late period where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
why would I go to my Walmart to go get a video to rent when I could just rent it online?
Exactly. And I imagine it's just people like that don't have a bunch of streaming boxes and like an internet connection at home, right? Like
Yeah,
probably,
yeah,
which is rare and
no, but
rarer. But yeah, and then I mean that's iTunes. So what they like he just like annihilated the music marketplace. But then like, what you want to move on to the iPhone now in 2007?
yeah, well, I mean, that's huge, man.
Yeah, I mean like that. I think is probably. I mean,
I
not
would
to
say
be
like on a
hyperbole, but like that's like one of the fucking largest things to happen. Not specifically the iPhone, but the iPhone is kind of the signal for like the dawn of the
yeah, because
smartphone,
like I
right?
remember, I'm trying to think. Like I'm curious when the iPod Touch launched before the iPhone. I don't think there was like that many years,
No,
but
no.
that was like that was revolutionary. Like
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. Oh, Samsung did it first. Like the iPod Touch and like the iPhone. Like I'm thinking more on the iPod Touch side. Like I remember we had a friend that had an iPod Touch pretty close to launch, and it was like I remember just like being so fascinated with this idea, like that you had just like different applications you could just download and like
Yeah.
these simple touchscreen games that were just like, what the fuck is this? Like, this
Or
is
even
so
just like
cool.
watching a movie in class. Like, what?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
the
yeah,
closest I had was when I had like an iPod video or whatever, and I'd have to
yeah. The
pre-download it.
classic, yeah,
But just to be able to go on YouTube while you're in the middle of class, like, I think that's the craziest thing is that it's just being able to access the internet anywhere.
hmm
I think is the most revolutionary part of it because like in me being a like luddite paranoid kind of idiot and I like want to get away from my phone and all that, like unplug. That's the hardest thing to imagine giving up is just being able to Google anything at any moment or just like
well,
access information
yeah.
whenever you need.
Well, and what's crazy too is the timeline. The fact that we went from probably like if you want to put a 10-year mark on that, saying the iPhone launching in 2007, in '97, like I'd be curious to know the stats of what average family even had like internet in their home, let
Yeah,
alone wireless
like
internet.
we would have had
Like,
dial up
yeah,
maybe at 97. Like I don't even know when I got the internet really.
yeah, like I don't like obviously I don't really remember 97, but like yeah, like that it's just crazy like how fast. And I think that speaks to like that and like what we've talked about even recently and stuff was like how fast like things are being developed nowadays and things are
Yeah,
changing. Like
just like
it's
the
just
rate of
like
technology, right?
but yeah, no, the iPhone was huge, man. Like we I mean again in Canada we didn't get the iPhone 1 really. I think I
Yeah, the 3GS was the first one we got, I think, right?
yeah, I feel like Rogers maybe carried it, but then
Yeah, I think
being
you're
that
right.
we
Yeah.
grew up in small town, not many people had Rogers because I remember they had really spotty service
Mm-hmm.
outside of cities in those years. So yeah, but then 3GS was kind of like the big launch, which was kind of also really close to when shortly after when I started working for cellular companies. So like
Oh
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
kind of yeah,
Yeah, you were
and
the
that was
tech boy
my
for us.
yeah, it was my first kind of smart device was an iPhone 3GS, which I remember was crazy. I went from a chocolate flip to a iPhone 3GS. It was
Nice.
pretty
Yeah, I went from
pretty
the
crazy.
LG Kibo.
Oh yeah, I remember you had that thing.
Yeah, and I honestly think, and it's probably a mix of the iPhone and then the mix of like Facebook. I think that's when like, because before that, internet was kind of like a nerd thing. Like it took work to figure out how to navigate it, how to get connected, and to like participate in it. But those
Well,
two things, I think, all of a sudden now everybody was online.
yeah. Well, and I laugh at thinking about the times, but I remember obviously the launch of Facebook and people starting to get Facebook. But the one that I find so fucking hilarious is Twitter
Mm-hmm.
and how like we utilize
We used to do
Twitter
it through text.
text tweet or whatever. And then
Yeah,
half the time it was more just like us having conversations because it was also like Twitter came out in this time where group text wasn't a thing for a majority of us because like I'm sure they had iPhone had launched at that point but not general access to us, so we were
mm-hmm.
utilizing Twitter essentially for just like group
That is
text
true. It's
because
such a strange
I
thing.
would get like a and thinking about it now that Twitter's huge, like I can't imagine getting a text message for
Every
every
tweet.
tweet you had from a follower
Well,
or
I remember, yeah,
from
you'd
someone
have
you
your
follow.
followers, and then I'd have a little checkbox for which ones I wanted to receive text notifications about.
Yeah,
And
but
so,
then
yeah, it
yeah
was
we
just all
would
my
use
friends. I would get text from anything anybody we knew tweeted.
yeah
What a
yeah
weird. Yeah, that's
yeah
that era is why I deleted my Twitter account. So,
because of what you said.
just 15-year-old boys shit talking each other and just having their group chat just broadcast for everyone to see. Yeah, no, it's
You can delete tweets.
yeah. Am I gonna go through 7 years ago and
Oh,
delete every
I
tweet?
did it,
Fuck.
man.
Oh no.
I went through and just one night shift. I think I probably spent a good half of the night shift, if not more, and just cleaned the absolute shit out of my
That's what
Twitter
I did on
account.
my Facebook.
I did that, yeah, to my Facebook as
On
well.
my night shifts, but
Which is it, and like that's crazy too. Like I know this is like way off topic, but like just like looking back at like how I utilized Facebook was just oh god, it was so cringy and
it was
embarrassing.
terrible.
Like
I
just
just
like
go finding
I'm
groups from like my weird
I'm
interests.
yeah, I'm doing this. Like
Yeah.
people's statuses would be like, I am cutting up vegetables or
Yeah,
like
because it used to be like your name would be right before the post, so then people would be like,
but
almost be like,
so
we'll
many of
use the
mine
name
were
too.
literally like so sick and tired of math. Can't wait for the party this Friday.
Yeah, I
Like
know,
it's
right?
just like, oh my god, man. Like what the fuck is
Oddly enough, that is still how most people use it.
that? Yeah. But
But no,
no.
I don't even think that is off topic because like those were big kind of like cultural ground movers, right? And we
Hmm.
grew up during it. Like that's what's weird is like we were going through like the weird transition that every human's gone through, but then we were going through it at the same time as like the culture was in the sense of like really radically reorientating how we engage and communicate with each other. And
Well,
like
and
we
then
were
for
already having to figure that out as teenagers, but then to like have all of that, like there's like a record of that on the internet. It's just like, oh god.
well, and then for us to go through that when everyone else is going through that the first time, and to throw in the fact that we were going through it like at like prime puberty age and
That's what I
shit
mean.
too.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
just
like,
like
yeah,
so much awkwardness kind of compounded. It's brutal.
yeah,
Because that's the thing. You can find perfectly normal adults that have some cringy shit they posted because everybody's figuring out how to post
hmm
and how to use the internet. But like, yeah, you do that plus
Because my first way of like getting exposed to that was through my PSP actually, because like that was my first device that I had that could actually like connect to the internet,
Mm-hmm.
and I could use a web browser to access Facebook, like, or access other websites,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, but
Yeah, that too. I feel like that was revolutionary for teenage boys too.
yeah, the PSP. Thanks a lot, Sony.
I remember early on too, like it wasn't even built in. Like you had to buy this specific game. It was like a racing game that had like a glitch in it that allowed you to access the web.
What?
Essentially,
Really?
yeah, like early PSP, they didn't have like a built-in browser, and yeah, people were like cracking this one game to be able to have a browser. It was super strange.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know. I'm assuming it was because I just didn't want to do it at home. But I remember like going, like walking across town, like trying to search for free Wi-Fi with
That's
this
funny.
PSP. Like, oh my god.
Before the idea of free Wi-Fi being fucking everywhere.
Yeah, which was crazy. Like back in those days, like people probably weren't fully aware of an understanding. Like it was quite easy to find someone who literally just had a completely unprotected Wi-Fi at their house that
Mm-hmm.
anyone could
Yeah,
access within a decent vicinity.
constantly. No,
But
it was
yeah,
good.
no, Apple changed a lot of things. Like, I mean, I know they get a lot of, I don't know. Apple definitely gets a lot of like controversy about copying other companies nowadays, but I think you can't help but ignore how much they have revolutionized like the tech industry as a whole, and they continue to, like, as much as people want to say otherwise, like
Mm-hmm.
they don't, like, nothing sells like Apple. Like it really doesn't. And like when you take like every device in the like the iPhone is the more common device that everyone has, like by far. Like, and I know Android you can't, because you can't really category Android as a whole because you have like
Because it's just not an
Samsung and
iPhone, right?
LG and Huawei and Sony and
Mm-hmm.
like all these other companies contributing to Android. But
Well, that's the thing is like I think you're right in the sense that Apple really shook things up and they're highly influential. But I think that's where like I think that's where the disconnect is that they were like revolutionary marketers, not so much that they revolutionized like technology. Like that is like
absolutely,
that's a thing, and that's what every company does. Like both Mac OS and like Windows, like essentially like Linux or Unix or whatever it was as an operating system. Like that's both Windows and Mac basically just ripped that off, right? Like they kind of because it was open source software that people were developing kind of collaboratively, like
hmm,
operating systems, and then they just kind of like just yoinked that and copyrighted it and privatized it, and then made their billions off of it. And so it's just like it's not so much that they revolutionized the tech, like even the iPhone, like the non-capacitive touchscreen or whatever it is, like that was all like government funded military research. Like they didn't even like, and so it's
yeah.
just interesting that like you can't deny Apple's impact. I think that's just where people get confused is when they see how popular and like and yeah, like influential they were. They assumed that that was due to the tech. Whereas more so, I think it's like they're fucking excellent marketers. They
Oh,
have a brand.
absolutely.
They have a brand image. They like have a certain like associated
Well,
demographic, and it works. And
and the fact that they've been able to do this for how long, given like so much shifts in economy, like,
mm-hmm.
and it's always been the more expensive product, which is crazy to think, like the more expensive product and the more ecosystem focused product too, which is a whole other marketing thing that they were able to just solely like
Yeah,
capitalize on, is
for
just
sure.
the ecosystem. It's still like the more popular device, which is kind of wild. Like you think,
I think that's kind of why because it has like this almost not elitist but like premium like quality, right? Like they'll
I
make
agree.
there's those memes that are like people making fun of like oh you're poor because you're on Android. It's just like what do you like a note costs almost as much as a fucking like it's not, but
Oh yeah,
they sell themselves as the fancier version, right? And
but like I also, as much as I agree, like that's maybe what they it did. I mean, I'd be curious, but if you like took a bunch of low income families, I guarantee a good percentage of them, if not majority of them, have at least one iPhone in the household.
oh yeah,
Like
and
it's
that's what I
not
mean. It's
like,
almost negligible at this point. Like they are more expensive, but not so much more than other phones, kind of thing, right?
yeah,
Like
Yeah, I think it's like when you get into their computers, like that was a big thing was their computers, and it still is. I mean, you can get a freaking $400 laptop that will last you a handful of years and
Mm-hmm.
run perfectly fine. Whereas like Apple, that doesn't exist. Like you're looking at $1,000 minimum for an
Yeah,
Apple product
exactly.
when
And
it
if you
comes to
want like an
computers.
actual beefy one, that's the thing is that they can sell kind of turds, but as long as it's in a MacBook case, people will pay out the ass for it, and it's just like,
Yeah,
and you know what? That's fine. Like if, and that's the thing. It's like their UI is super user friendly. It's very streamlined. Everything just works seamlessly together. Like if you have the money to be an Apple guy, it is really consumer friendly, and I think that's
yeah.
probably the biggest thing. Like,
And I don't know. I'm not. I guess you could call me an Apple guy. Like I have a laptop. I have a phone. I have the earbuds. I
mm-hmm.
have the Apple TV. Like I guess I'm that pretty much makes me an Apple
You have
guy.
that tattoo of Steve Jobs. No.
But yeah, but yeah, no, it's like I don't know. I see the benefits in it too. Like being kind of a techie person, like knowing a bit of that. I know like and having Windows in the past, like they do bog down like way faster. I find and like. I've had my MacBook now for pushing over 8 years, and like it runs pretty much the same speed it does when I got it. Like so
mm-hmm.
smooth. Like, and I find like I had like a laptop, like a Windows laptop, and it was so slow, so fast. But I don't know.
And you never
It's
know whether that comes down to hardware. I think that's also where Apple does well, is because the software and the hardware are tied together. Like you know, like
mhm.
whereas Windows you can get how many different brands of laptops,
Well,
right?
and
Whereas
now
Android you can
then
get how many brands of phone. But
that's the big revolutional thing too that they've got going on now is they're developing their own chips. Like it's no more AMD or
oh,
Intel.
really? They're doing their
They
own
have their own
processor?
silicon Apple silicon laptops that have launched now, which are like apparently insanely fast, and then have batteries that can last like a fucking
Wow,
week. So
that's interesting that they wouldn't want that separation, that extra level of separation between them and then the children mining the coltan.
yeah, I don't know.
You think they'd like that? Oh, that's AMD's problem. That's not us. We just build the
Yeah,
chips. But
yeah.
yeah, I think that's the
No,
biggest thing with the Windows thing that you said is like why it's super user friendly because like that stuff's kind of taken care of for you, right? Whereas like the only people that bitch about Apple are the hyper nerds that can see like why are you paying so much? You can get something just as powerful for this price. But it's just like yeah, but you don't have to do maintenance on it constantly. Like you're right that
oh,
you could save
exactly.
money and have the same performance, but you also kind of have to be like a computer nerd to kind of get Windows to really work for you.
Like when I was on the side, kind of like doing just like cleanup on computers and like virus stuff, man, I would get so many Windows computers, and like the Windows computers were easy enough for me to do what I did, and I made some money off of it. But man, when I got an Apple computer, it was just like 10 minutes, and I'm just done everything I need to do, and it's running
Nice.
way better. And it's like that's a joke that I just made a decent amount of money off of a 10 minute
Right?
like process.
Huh.
But yeah, it is what it is. It's to each their own. But to me, like one of the biggest things that I value is just longevity of a device, and
Yeah, and their hardware is probably
on like a
among the
laptop side of
best.
things.
Yeah.
Mobile is an interesting thing when it comes to longevity because I find no one really, unless you're like someone who's prone to breaking your phone, no one really truly takes the time for a longevity of a phone before they're upgrading their
Well, and you
contract to get the next one, right?
kind of can't, whether it's like physically degrading, but also like it's a mix of like the tech moves so quickly that like the apps that keep up with it, like you just can't run shit on
Yeah,
a 4 year old phone. But also some of it's intentional too. Like Apple got in trouble for kind of like throttling their
yeah.
battery and shit on older models and stuff. So it's a
Hmm.
mix of like
And they
kind of
paid the
like
price on that. Like they have like a some sort of like system where you can claim money back if you were one of those people
oh really?
that purchased a phone in that timeline.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually get money back on your device
That's
because
nice.
they got caught doing that.
Yeah,
But
but I mean, I'm sure
yeah,
there's
no,
some
Apple's
sneakier way to
crazy,
do
man.
it. Everybody does it, but
Yeah, they're always changing the game. And now the biggest news I've read too is within the next. Well, they've just officially partnered with Hyundai, and they're hoping to launch the first Apple car within the next 3 4
an
years. I
Apple
think
car, wow.
yeah,
Oh, that's genius. And like, I mean, it's trite to make fun of it, but like, there is like that certain type of Apple guy, and it's not even like they're tech people, but it is just they need the newest of each product. So like,
hmm
genius, genius. They'll
well, and
buy
I
a
think
car for whatever price, man.
if you to me, I think where they I don't know what where the idea of it is, but it's just like to me when you think of those like truly like quite wealthy Apple people, they're the ones buying the fucking Teslas. So what better way market to try and interfere and be like, no, don't buy the Teslas, buy the Apple
Yeah,
car.
no doubt.
Like, cause like that's I don't know, that's probably where a lot of money.
Oh, I
Which
guarantee it.
side note, fucking that's crazy. Elon
Yeah,
Musk, richest man in the
richest
world
man in the
already.
world.
Like that's so fast,
Fucking
man. Like
garbage.
I can't believe that. I know you don't love him too much, but
Oh no, I fucking hate that dude. And like, what's incredible is that they didn't do anything. They
I
didn't
know
do. He didn't do it. It's purely market
he hasn't
speculation
even
garbage.
well, I
Well,
shouldn't
they
say that.
met their production goal. Oh, great.
Well,
That's isn't
and
that
he
what every
hasn't made
company's
it just
supposed to
from
do?
Tesla. People forget about that.
Yeah, I
Like
know he's got a bunch of shit
he's
going
got
on.
like the whole
SpaceX or whatever.
SpaceX, which has done actually a lot of big launches. They did their first
Hmm.
manned launch, which was huge. And then with Boring Company, I think that's getting more and more deals of people wanting that put in. And they did, I think it was at the end of 2020 or 2019, they actually had like their first like test trials where people could go and go on a vehicle that went down like through like the boring tunnels or
Yeah,
whatever.
I love that too. Like, we need better transport. Well, let's just do cars still, but underground rather than like trains or something that could actually move a lot of people.
Well, and the hope is I think is to do that too with the boring
Hopefully.
tunnels.
Yeah,
But
we'll
yeah,
see. But even that's interesting. Whether it's SpaceX, whether it's the Boring Company, all the money he's getting is fucking taxpayer money from government contracts. So it's just like he's not even
yeah,
like a businessman making money on the market. He's just milking average people for all their fucking funding, and it's just like,
yeah. No, I don't know. I'm pretty fascinated with like what he comes out with and does. I don't fully like. I read his. It wasn't even written by him, but
of course,
book
yeah.
about. But it made me. I don't know. I just I like that his story like he didn't come from a whole lot and what he's been able to develop.
Didn't his parents own diamond mines in South Africa?
Oh really?
Yeah, he's literally the sons of the people that like enforced apartheid in South Africa. Like,
Oh wow.
he's rich because his family used to own slaves, essentially. Like,
Oh my god. Oh,
yeah, like that's why this whole myth of him being like this genius businessman visionary
yeah.
is like
I don't.
he just has the money to pay for that image essentially and get
Yeah.
puff pieces written about him or books and like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's I hate this dude, but I could go off on fucking Elon all day. Let's go on to somebody else stupid. Oh,
So
what do we
I
got?
take it you'll never own a Tesla then,
Never in my life, no.
just because it's supporting Elon or what?
Well, that and plus, like, I don't know, like this. I mean, that's a whole other side thing that I could go off about. Is just like this idea of electric cars. It's just like, okay, sure, if like carbon emissions, like we're worried about that, like electric cars are not the answer because it's not just carbon emissions that's destroying the planet. It's also like the unfucking mitigated mining and destruction of habitat. So there's how many goddamn cars in the world, and if everybody just needs to replace that with the fucking electric car, let alone like the batteries alone, the lithium and the shit like that that you need for those, like you can't just like transform the transportation on that level. Like essentially the environmental degradation that you need to give everybody an electric car would be just as bad like as
Yeah,
just
that's
to
what you
keep
mean.
driving this shit. Like it's not an issue of the tech and how we're doing it. It's well, it is how that's exactly it. It's how we're doing it. It's the whole system of consumption and just kind of like planned obsolescence, throwing things out, everybody having their own personal car and stuff like that. It's just like that's not sustainable. And so this idea, it's the same as like having like I don't know, fucking green energy for like uh, any kind of production essentially. Like it's not just the energy, it's how much we're producing that's the problem. And so like just
Mhm.
switching that production to electric cars isn't really gonna change anything.
Yeah. No, I can see it.
But that's not fun. Let's talk about the who. Do we have a decision yet on our dumbest Burton of the week, Cam?
Um,
It's a tough one. I
what's this first one?
That's old Devin Dreeshen. I think we should at least talk about him. This guy's like quite the.
Okay, let's talk about this guy.
So this guy he's an MLA for I'm pretty sure it's Slave Lake, but he's also our agricultural minister, and so this guy's got a lot of. Oh no, sorry, it's the Innisfil Sylvan Lake MLA, and yeah, he's the minister of agriculture and forestry. So he's kind of, people are talking about him right now, currently, because he's having like kind of a meltdown on Twitter. People are trying to talk to him and like ask him questions, and he's just blocking people. And so then there's one specific instance here where someone was asking like, why are you blocking Albertan citizens for questioning your politics? Have you forgotten that you're literally accountable to the public? And then he tries to do this like weird little thing. He's like, well, you're not in my riding, like you're not my constituent. I'm not your MLA, so just contact my office. And then he asks this person, where do you live? And they said, I live in Alberta. That's what I'm talking. Well, if you don't live in my riding, aren't my constituent. If you have an issue with the government, contact your local MLA. And so she's like, well, wait, so Alberta citizens who aren't in your constituency don't matter to you? I can't vote for you, so that's it? I'm not surprised. And so then he says, that's exactly how our system works. Yes, your local MLA represents you, not whatever random MLA you want to reach out to on Twitter. Meanwhile, he's like the minister for the entire province. So he just says, I suggest if you have questions, take it up with your MLA. I don't have time to freelance for the entire province. And that's the part that gets me. It's like, motherfucker, you're a minister. Yeah, your job is literally to govern an aspect of the entire province.
And so the initial, like, reaction on his part is because he was supporting those that traveled abroad over Christmas?
I don't even really know what the initial, like, what they were trying to get a fucking hold of him for. I just saw that exchange online, but it's just, this isn't new. This guy is an interesting cat. I'm just going to post something in our little doc here for you to have a look at. But yeah, so before he even got elected as an MLA, he was hanging out down in the old US, volunteering for the Trump campaign in like 2016.
Is this guy fucking 12?
Yeah, I know, right?
What the hell?
Yeah, he's a little baby face boy for sure. But yeah, this dude won 82% of the vote, and long after this picture of his little baby face in a nice MAGA hat raising a glass at some fucking Trump campaign event. So
Christ.
He is, yeah, just like one of these kind of reactionary, wacko, weird.
Well, and it's no wonder that Jason Kenney appointed him to be the Minister of Agriculture.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yes, like, I'm sure Kenny's got an old MAGA hat sitting at home too. So
yeah. Oh, somebody dug up. Kenny was posting pictures of those make Trudeau a drama teacher again hats with the hashtag MAGA from like a few years back. So that was from Jason Kenney. People are digging up that one, but
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I don't know, like.
It's silly to say, like, I don't want to just say he's dumb because he doesn't agree with me, but specifically the idea of like thinking you've got someone with the gotcha, being like, well, actually, I'm not your MLA, but it's like, did you forget you're a minister? Like, are you that much like of a nepotistic, like kind of just taking whatever position you can get, kind of like just all the power with none of the responsibility, right? Like, this dude's a minister, but I don't want to freelance for the entire province. You're not freelancing. You have a fucking pension, buddy. You're getting paid by us. Fucking respond.
Like, yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, this guy seems like a tool.
He's a turd for sure,
but I don't know. The more and more shit that's coming up, it's a blessing in disguise, because I really truly think people are on the other side are seeing the true colors to the UCP, which is good.
I think I like to hope so. I am just getting worried though that, like, because I'll have conversations with people that are kind of on that side of things, in the sense that, like, but you're right that they're kind of coming like, oh man, these guys are kind of crooked and kind of like sleazy. This is not okay. But when you kind of like, what are they gonna do about it? You like ask them. Well, we can't vote for the NDP. Right? Or the Liberals, right? Like, it's kind of like, for them, it's like a lesser of two evils situation. Like, yeah, they might be fucking us over and wasting all our taxpayer dollars, but at least they're not the NDP. Like, I don't know. But
I feel like something had to change in this last election, though, because I don't know, like, maybe it's just numbers. Maybe it's not my fully understanding of like the number differential of who showed up to the polls this last election compared to when Rachel first got in. But I don't know, like, she got in, so clearly like NDP is capable of getting into power in Alberta. And so I don't know. Like I'm just like I know a big motivating factor was the student population, from my understanding, for the NDP,
Mm-hmm.
um, which clearly posed an issue here in Lethbridge. I mean, we're split by two ridings, one of which is NDP, one of which is UCP.
That's crazy.
When Rachel was in power, they were both NDP. So
So is
and
that close,
and
eh?
it's crazy too because we have both a college in one side and a university in the other too.
Which one
So
do you
you're getting
think has the higher average income?
definitely though. Well, that's a tough one. I want to say the west side, but well, no, I don't think I can say the west side because the south side has
There's
way
some
more
probably
of the
ritzy
city.
areas too.
Well, there's some ritzy areas for sure, and it just has more population. It also has the lower income of the side of the city,
That's true.
but not that I'm speaking poorly of that area. I think in our town, especially, like a lot of those kind of people probably aren't making it to the polls and stuff like that.
Well, that's what I mean. Like it's
Yeah,
more so. I was thinking more so like it would be the rich that would flip flop back and forth, right? Like I don't know how much the NDP won the election. I mean, they definitely did, but like they didn't really have any like big bold messaging or anything like that. I honestly think it was just a reaction to the shit show that was Jim Prentice and Alison Redford.
yeah, I think
Like I
that was
think
a big
that
thing.
was like melting down. Like that was 40 years of corruption kind of coming to a head of these people just kind of milking the taxpayers for everything they're worth, for fucking flights everywhere and hotels and shit.
Hmm.
And so I think you're kind of seeing that a bit now with this like traveling to Hawaii stuff, like people getting angry and being like, you're not supposed to be that crooked. But I think what happened in the last election is like I think they had an outlet in that they went and voted for the Wild Rose or the Alberta Party or something else instead, right? Rather than the Progressive Conservatives.
Yeah,
And I think that fracturing is really what allowed the NDP to get in. I
that was
think there was
that
probably a
was
little bit of a protest vote in favor of the NDP, but I feel like
yeah,
most of the protest went to a different conservative party.
yeah. No, UCP combining like Wild Rose and conservative was the big sole reason for sure.
And I think both that got them in, but I think that might be their ultimate demise. Like I think that there's going to be a split there because you've got like the kind of buttoned up shirt and tie conservatives that just want to be polite about hating poor people and they don't like seeing the like super wacky QAnon shit being tied to their brand, right? So
Yeah, which I think like, and this will transition into what we're going to talk about at the end, but I think this is what's so interesting slash like kind of scary, but it's like I think just like with the amount of shit going on where you have these kind of people who are so far on the right and they're getting their voices heard and they're getting more and more of a following, and we're seeing like fucking Red Deer man had a Trump rally 2 days ago and it was packed, like, and it's just like it's crazy. And unfortunately, like, obviously we have Kenny here who has like a fairly well-known U.S. connection, and what's his face is pretty good friends. Was it Ted Cruz? No,
mm-hmm.
yeah, because that's I did not know that Ted Cruz is originally
He's
like used to
Canadian, yeah.
live in Calgary,
Yep.
and so
Well, yeah, you Texas, dude. Like, it's actually crazy. Everybody makes the joke of Alberta as the Texas of Canada, but there's so many direct lines between fucking here and fucking Houston and Dallas and shit. Like all the oil, like I guess
yeah,
it gets old to hear, but it's always follow the money, and that's kind of the thing. The money here, the people with power here, are either just actually the people with power in Texas or related to them.
yeah.
Like, there's so much of like a kind of go between there.
I don't know, and like I think that connection like is just it's I don't know, it's kind of scary in some ways for me, man. It's just like this. It's so weird, like that we have this radical right like thing going on. And I know it's been going on forever, but like I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we've seen it to this severity, obviously, and we haven't seen the attraction where like so many people are getting involved. And like I don't know, it's just it's really interesting to see what will come of it. Like I know Alberta is going to be very similar. Like unfortunately for Kenny, like he knows he has to appease both sides, so he is pissing off his own people. I think a lot right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as much as he does try to appease them, I know like his comments late over the past few days is like, did you hear what he said yesterday? Apparently, he said yesterday that he believes as though air travel is safer than going to a grocery store,
Yeah.
and so he does he believes if traveling can be done safely, then he doesn't see a problem with it.
Yeah, that's especially when he talks about the data. He's such a good politician in the sense that like we don't have any data that traveling by air isn't safe. What a fucking perfect way to like use the fact that we have no goddamn data to make your
Yeah.
point. Like, of course we
Well,
don't have
there's
any
a
data that it's unsafe. We don't know anything.
yeah, and the only people that can fit through the system to actually travel are the people that work for you. So it's
Yeah,
where's the data going to come from those individuals? Like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
It's funny. I mean, specifically, I remember seeing an interview with like an epidemiologist, but they were just like the idea that traveling in a tube full of recycled air for prolonged periods of time is that anyway safe in the midst of a respiratory disease pandemic is
Well,
like the most unscientific thing I've ever heard. Like,
and to compare it to something that is essential by you going to get food
yeah,
to
you really
feed
need
you and
food
your
to eat.
family. Like, I don't know. It's just this guy's a fucking clown, man.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I think that's where I like when I mean with the scary thing is it's just like I don't think there's a matter to how much, like speaking back to what we were talking about, I don't think there's a matter of how much this guy can be a clown over the next couple of years that he's still going to be in power. There's still going to be this side that's going to, and we know that it's just going to
Mm-hmm.
vote him no matter what.
Yeah, and even if they don't like him, like I wonder how much it would take. I just think it's one thing to get them to be mad at their own party, and that's happening and easy. But people are equating that with that means they'll vote NDP, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
think many are
Well, and
going
I
to make
think
that
that's what's
jump.
interesting. Like, so it's so like far in the future, but for the next election, like, is it truly just going to be NDP versus UCP again?
I
Because
think
like, well, I
Alberta
know
Party's
the
still a thing, isn't it?
Liberal Party, yeah, and they'll never get in power here,
No,
but
no.
I'm not discrediting that they'd have a candidate, but like, so because of the agreement of Wild Rose and Conservative, uh, is that like a permanent agreement, or I guess if UCP fell out of power, then maybe they could choose to disband again, or
That's
like
kind of the thing,
could
yeah,
all of a
right? Like,
sudden in the next election, even though we have UCP, there's a Wild Rose supporter that wanted to be involved
yeah,
in
I
the
think
next
so. Like,
election.
I think like there could be like they could still be the UCP, but there may be a new offshoot right wing party kind of come to fruition within the next couple of years.
Yeah,
You never know.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't
No,
know.
it's fun stuff. I don't know. It's one thing. It might be something. If I get ambitious, it's I've done some kind of cursory reading, but this is another case where kind of like historical, cultural context comes into place in the sense that like and the fall of the money cliche, but it's like it does feel like this is out of nowhere. What's going on? Why do all these crazy people believe this crazy shit? But there has been like a concerted effort, mostly from American like conservative types. But it's all about this like kind of like think tank. You like run these foundations or these institutes that do research and have opinions and stuff like that. But it's mostly oil money, and they've kind of been just like churning for like 50, probably more, like half a century, just kind of churning out this stuff and giving like almost like a like academic like a professional like studious cover for kind of wackier right wing shit. And those have just been churning around for so long now. There's been so much money kind of poured into these networks. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they're up here too. We have like the Fraser Institute and stuff like that. That I think it's just we're kind of seeing it finally come to fruition. Like all these seeds they've been planting, it's just finally like kind of coming to a head, and now we'll have to deal with it. But
Well, and I think probably too being they had a voice of power that was like a true person that they could see themselves as like their ideal leader.
oh, with
Like,
Trump,
yeah, probably played a
yeah,
huge part into it, right? Like, it's like he didn't discredit them as people into what they were doing, and if anything, supported it. So it just kind of, and then this idea that they're losing that. So, like, I guess we just segue this into obviously everyone knows that we're going to talk about it is
mm-hmm. Well, let's come back to talk about that after the break. I don't know. I just had one point you were mentioning that I really wanted to like the idea of them having a guy that they can identify with now, right? Like now that this is their leader. And I
Yeah.
think that's why it's like backfiring a bit, because it was the guys I mentioned earlier, the suits that want to hate poor people politely, that were the ones funding all this research. But for the electoral power, they were kind of like out of one side of their mouth pandering to those kind of more wacky fucking like white supremacists, like the real racist, like bigoted, kind of like evangelical people. Like they wanted to have like degrees of separation so they could get those people to the polls to vote for them, but then they could disavow them as crazy. And
Hmm.
then Trump came along and surprised that establishment by being one of the crazies, but having the resources and the cultural cachet to like win it, which is like, I don't think they ever wanted a guy like Trump in power. They just wanted to have guys like Trump vote for them. And so then,
Right.
yeah, like it kind of ruptured. And now these people see that, oh my God, we're in power now. And the people that were kind of like utilizing them are like kind of shocked and don't know what to do now, because they don't want that really vulgar kind. They want the polite kind of, they want to be able to hide behind statistics and economics, and this is just the way to do things. They don't want to actually out loud say they're white supremacists. So I think we're kind of seeing a battle between those two sides of right wing shit too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna take a little break here, and then when we come back, we're gonna get into some racky right wing bullshit. The big event that everybody saw go down at the Capitol on the 6th should be a fun time. All right, we're back. Now's for the fun half. Let's get into the meat. What really went down this past week? Kind of alluded there at the end of the last half there, but some fucking crazy shit went down at the old capital of the old U.S. of A. on January 6th.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, again, this is almost echoing your sentiment whenever we bring up COVID, but unless you were living under a fucking rock,
Yeah.
this shit went down. It was pretty fucking wild.
Hmm.
I just started seeing the memes, and I honestly didn't think like that was a thing that was happening. I thought people were just making memes, like a joke, like haha, wouldn't it be funny if the Trumpers like stormed the Capitol after he lost? But that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. No, I remember I was working nights, so I woke up to like chaos just on like social media and everything. I'm like, what the hell went on? And then like had to put pieces together. But I'm just kind of going off of this timeline because I'm curious. Like I mean, I know what happened, but so obviously it started out with crowds of Trump supporters, and like there was thousands. Like I seen a few photos, man, and it was nuts how many people were there.
Oh yeah, no, that was like a
Um,
mob is not superlative. Like that's it was a mob. It was wild. So I don't know. Do you want to go through a timeline, or like I don't know, because I don't even really know what happened. I just know like I
well,
saw videos that they were like gathered outside.
I guess I didn't realize how much this was incited and like instigated on Trump's side. Is it was initiated by him tweeting big protest in D.C. January 6th, be there, be wild.
Oh, that was back in
He
December.
he just tweeted that on December 19th.
Oh, okay. Oh my god.
So around 11 a.m. the rally began. Um,
Save America. Okay. His kids were there.
yeah, his kids were there. Good old Rudy was there.
Rudy.
Um, yeah, no, and so they marched, and then I guess riders began grappling the walls at around 1:10, and that is kind of when they made their way in, and chaos started to ensue. And before we even talk about it, like just what went down, like the biggest thing for me, and through what I was reading, is just like what they were capable of doing before, like they really were stopped. It's just mind blowing
I
to
can't believe
me
how far they got. Yeah.
that we've seen these Black Lives Matter protests be interrupted by hundreds and hundreds of police officers, like rioters, SWAT teams, fucking gassing them, beating them down.
Yeah.
And yet these people managed to break into the Capitol, I seen photos of them in the actual like the main room, like where you have like the
Yeah, they're in the Senate chambers.
yeah, in the Senate chambers. Like some guy was sitting in the seat, like, and they're all in there. Like, it's absolutely fucked,
Oh,
man.
was that like the QAnon shaman? That dude with the fucking furs and the Viking
Yeah,
helmet and the I
like
couldn't believe that,
the
man.
fact that they were able to do this, and I know the biggest focus on this is that they were whites, so that's how they were able to do it, and I believe it, man. Like it's crazy, man. Like
I mean, that's part of it for sure, and whether it's racial, but I think honestly ideological, which racism falls under that a little bit. But the thing is that the types of people that were out there at the rally and screaming are the same types of people that become police officers. Like, I don't know if it's any more complicated than that. Like,
yeah, like
it's the
I'm
same
sure there was
same crew
an element
basically.
of
Like,
support. There had to be. How is it that they could
of
get away
course.
with doing those things without having some element of, I don't know, just like hesitation for on an officer's side to do anything? Like, and I seen
It's
like a
pretty wild.
meme the next day. It was just showing a bunch of people cleaning up from the riot, and I'm sure it was just the picture that was taken, but all the people in the picture were just black men just sweeping the floors and cleaning up after these fucking white people
Yeah, of
just
course, right?
demolished the Senate. And it's just sad that and I get it. Some of the Black Lives Matter protests unfortunately weren't very peaceful, and shit happened, and I can see why those had to be interrupted because of that. But the
Again,
fact
I
that these
guess yeah.
people were able to get away with what they were getting away with, and I mean, what is it? Four? They're claiming four have died now. So I mean,
Yeah,
shit
for
did
and then
go
one
down.
cop, I think, right?
Yeah,
Well, the thing is that, like, sure, whether Black Lives Matter protests got violent or riots, whatever you want to call them, I think it all comes down to okay, what's the stated goal of these protests? One is like, hey, the police are disproportionately violent towards our communities, and we'd like to stop being literally murdered. And then one's like, we want our game show host to stay president. Like that's just
yeah.
like what the fuck? How can you equate those two? That's what gets me. It's just like,
Well, and I know, and it's just insane, man. And like, I remember I seen a video
and
of like a girl
there's like a
that got
mix of like the police didn't do much, and then there's the police actively helped them. Like there's this one video I just posted in the doc here, like on Reddit, that I guess yeah, the cops just swung open the gates for them half the time. Like a lot of the times they just opened the door for them. They like let them in. Like
that's wild.
it boggles my mind that like the worst part is that they were able to get so far and they did nothing. Like they had no goal beyond like just like throwing a tantrum essentially that they
Well,
wanted
and that's
everyone
kind
on a
of
big
what's
wet boy.
funny.
Like
That's what's funny
yeah.
of the whole thing is they didn't really accomplish much at all.
Well, they didn't
They
set
they
out
just
to
made
accomplish
themselves
anything.
look like fools in front of everyone. And I get it, like it's a huge port, like it was a huge amount of people, but in the idea of the population of the United States of America, you just made your country look like fucking fools.
Yeah.
And now you have a lot of good people that are ashamed to even be considered in the same category as you. Like, and just seeing like the post interviews of a
Yeah.
few of them, like this girl crying because she got maced, and she was just like, "It's a revolution," and just like going nuts. Like it's just like,
Okay.
what, where, what? Like I don't get it. And like the 20th is gonna be crazy,
Like, what do
man.
you
Like,
want beyond Trump to stay president? They had no demands. They have no like idea of like how they want things to change. It's just like, I
mhm.
mean, there were some people there that do have very clear ideas of how they want things to change, and that's a little troubling. But
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like,
I guess I think beyond obviously there's the class and racial lines. Like these were median income white suburbanites mostly doing this kind of like this rioting shit, and that's kind of white suburbanites tend to be cops, or cops tend to be white suburbanites, I guess. But I think beyond that, it also like that's kind of like the personal individual reason why like individual cops weren't as vindictive as I mean they're literally trained to view poor mostly black or people of color as like dangerous enemies, right? Like they
yeah,
don't receive that same kind of training for your average like Sea-Doo dealership dad. So like I think that's part of it, but also because there was no stated goal, they didn't really have any plan beyond going on a field trip to the state capital or the country's capital. Like they just wanted to take selfies and make a big stink. Like again, half of their impulse is just let's make the liberals mad. That's like pretty much the only reason they do anything. And so I think part of it was that, and I think because that's all it was, that's why they were able to get so far. Like I wonder if there's like a bit of a calculation, like okay, if we put this down violently, God knows what's going to happen, kind of thing. Like if they kind of just come in here, take their pictures, nothing is. They weren't an actual threat to power, is what I'm trying to say. Like they weren't actually going to threaten the status quo. They weren't actually wanting to change anything, and that might factor into why they were allowed to like get so far.
And I agree to that. Like, and I think with any of these protests, like violence isn't the answer. Like even with this, like I don't know, like on their side, like how much violence was imposed other than them just wrecking the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It could have got ugly, and like in a span from like what the first report was at 110 of them climbing the walls, by 146 there was already reports of there being a pipe bomb outside.
Yeah.
So that probably changed the whole scheme of things too,
for sure.
with multiple gunshots. And I could be wrong on this, but I want to believe that Biden was there. Like Biden was in the city that day too, if I'm correct.
Maybe, probably. I imagine he's probably hanging out there till inauguration. Yeah. Wow. Well, that's the thing. I wish I could find it, but I did read some reporting too that like there was some. They like uncovered some like communications kind of leading up to this from like some a little more radical fringe groups on the right there that like there were some of them that came with weapons and like handcuffs and like they were planning, they wanted to start like taking hostages and executing people like all mixed in with the people that just want him to not be suspended from Twitter. You know, like it's just like it's such a strange mishmash of.
So then Mike Pence was there. He was at the Senate. And then Trump called out Mike Pence after he was escorted out of the Senate. Trump tweeted, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent and inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth, is what he tweeted after he literally 2 minutes after he was escorted out of the Senate.
Well, yeah, because he was pushing Pence to. He wanted him to block the certification of the electoral votes, essentially, right? Like he wanted Pence to stop the count, essentially, and then Pence was obviously he doesn't work for Trump; he works for the GOP, so he's like, no, what the fuck?
Yeah,
and yeah, that's where that comes from. Yeah, I did hear that Pence got evacuated from the building though, but yeah, it's. I think that's the craziest thing is it's interesting to see the reactions too because. Again, it's easy to fall into kind of us versus them mentalities, but I'm kind of worried what this means. Both like now we've got people emboldened, obviously, if we've already got some crazy right wingers up north here doing some violent.
Well, yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, I just don't understand the spread of it being up here. Apparently, Toronto had a big protest. I'm sure, and then there's lots of smaller ones. And I get Alberta, but it's just crazy. And what does it mean going forward? What is the risk? Not that I like talking about this, but I remember when Trump got in, everyone was speculating just I bet you he's going to be the next president to get assassinated and all this stuff. I remember that was just a big topic of conversation, but
yeah.
What is the safety concerns for Biden now? Coming into this, this is crazy.
Imagine that, right? Yeah.
And I mean, we're only 14 days away from inauguration day, so
yeah, I wonder what that's gonna look like. That's gonna be some. I mean, already they've erected so much security in DC.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild, and for sure.
I think the biggest thing that freaks me out for the fallout from this is it's interesting to see how many people that I just saw talking about defunding the police and how the police are bad. I mean, justifiably being angry at them for not doing their jobs. It's okay, the one time we need police, maybe questioning need, but the one time that they're supposed to fulfill a function that they state they're supposed to fill, that's their direct stated directive, and they didn't do it. And so I worry that now we're gonna get this specter of right-wing extremism. That's why we need more surveillance. That's why we actually need more money for the cops. That's why we actually need to crack down harder on kind of some of this stuff. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
maybe part of that is true. Like, even the idea of like we need to be able to ban like hate groups and stuff from online platforms and things like that. And
Well, and I think that's why probably. I mean, given I think that was where a lot of the embarrassment lied was Trump's reaction to this all, and that's probably why he got banned now from Twitter. Is because like he tweeted his tweets never once said like don't do this. Like even during after multiple shots were reported, we're looking at like 2 hours after he had started breaking stuff and getting into the building, he asked just to remain peaceful, but just said we are the party of law and order, respect the law, and our great men and women in blue. Thank you, but like never once didn't condemn what they were doing.
mm-hmm.
Just do it peacefully. When at that exact moment, a photo was taken of a man, Richard Barnett, who's apparently a big Trump supporter, sitting in the office to the assistant of Nancy Pelosi, just chilling there
I
with
saw that, just
his
feet up on the desk, right?
feet up on the desk. Like, oh my god.
Unreal. But like again, it's just like it almost infuriates me even more. It's like holy shit, you got into Nancy Pelosi's office and all you could think to do was take a fucking selfie. Like what a lack of imagination. Like
Yeah, I
you guys
know.
managed to raid the state capitol. All you did was fucking take selfies and scream about Trump and Jesus. Like holy shit, what a fucking waste. Like what you're saying there about how Trump wasn't denouncing it and how now you've got lots of people like the law. We're the party of law and order, and I did see a lot of that from like conservative pundits who have been the ones to like egg these people on for the last fucking 4 years with Trump. But if you go bigger, probably the last 40 years, these people have been egging on this segment of the population the entire time. Like Joe Biden's a communist. He's gonna take away your freedoms. Blah 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 blah. Blah. And then they're surprised when these people think, "Well, shit, we better fucking raid the Capitol." Like, and then to turn around and denounce them, be like, "We're better than this. We're the Trump party of law and order." It's gonna be interesting. Like that's almost gonna be another split in that segment of the population. I think because like the like establishment conservative types, like the ones with money that want to kind of keep up appearances to be the law and order party, have been utilizing these people to get them into power for so long and egging
Mhm.
them on that it's like the chickens coming home to roost kind of situation. So I wonder what's going to happen as their purported leaders that these people have been following are now denouncing their actions. Like where are they going to go? That's just going to make shit crazier, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I like yeah, it's kind of just like wild like to think that this all went down. And now like where I'm reading it's just talking about the woman that was shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was some QAnon lady. There's that video everybody's posted of her ranting in her car.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I did post one thing here. This is almost on some Operation Inspiration shit, but a Georgia woman that went to the riot was I mean it's any human loss is kind of gross. Like she was trampled to death, which is it's got to be a rough way to go. But she brought a "Don't Tread on Me" flag to the protest.
Oh my god. Oh my god, that is awful. But
That's fucking unreal. Oh, the irony. Tastes like
one guy,
death.
and some of the other deaths, man. One guy had a stroke and one guy had a heart attack.
I know. I heard about that.
They
And
just
I
got
don't know.
so excited. They're just like, "Oh my god!" They're just like,
So pumped up.
"Oh, that is hilarious." Oh, this is so terrible that I'm laughing at this.
Trump is
The
president.
photo of the man
Christ
with the
is
heart
king.
attack, though, he's holding two AK-47s or some automatic rifles, and he's just death
Holy
by heart
shit.
attack.
Unreal.
But unfortunate
That's
about the
funny.
cop. The
What's
rest of
that?
them, it's unfortunate about the cop, but
Yeah.
the rest of them, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and didn't
Uh,
some guy he didn't die, but I guess there's some guy awaiting like spinal surgery because he fell off of one of the scaffoldings that's being set up for the inauguration celebration,
oh my god.
and so he's climbing that and fell off and broke his back. Like, that's the thing is like, these people died for Trump,
Yep.
not even for any way to make their own lives better, not for like any change. They literally died because they want the host of The Apprentice to stay president.
Yeah.
Fucking pathetic.
I don't I don't even know, man. I don't even like. It's just crazy because it's like it's hard to react to anything new when this shit happens anymore because it's just like it shocks me in a sense, but you almost have to expect it at this point.
Yeah.
Like it's just like yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think this is. I mean, it's like I barely even understand the concept, but I think this is where like the hyper real comes into play. Um, I think somebody else came up with the term, but I only know of it from Adam Curtis. He's like a documentary filmmaker from like he's mostly on the BBC. But he talks about this thing called hypernormalization, which is everything is so insane all the time. Everything's always just turned up to 11 that it becomes normal,
Yeah,
and yet we all still like we all know that it's not, but we all still operate as if it is. And yeah, it's just you get this weird surreal feeling when you pay attention to this stuff. It feels like yeah, you're right. It's just like it's shocking, but I almost don't even react anymore.
well, and I think that's what's sad too, because to like future generations, I think it's gonna impact them to just the fact that they probably think that this is just normal and this is okay, which I
Mm-hmm.
guess is it's not a whole lot different than what we are.
Oh,
We're
exactly.
almost considering it normal, but we at least know it's not okay. And I don't know. It's just wild that this shit's gonna continue to happen. I agree with you. Like it's gonna be interesting the next few days, and the 20th will be an
Mm-hmm.
interesting one as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's I would love to see Canada try and remove itself. I don't get why we have an outcry of Trump supporters. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like I guess the one argument, as much as I don't think it makes sense, that I see that maybe there is the oil piece, but it doesn't. It's not like that's a huge enough piece for it to make a
Yeah,
whole
no,
lot of
it's not
sense
so
to me.
much the oil thing as it is like I think I mentioned it earlier, but like it's just like the networks of influence, whether that's money, whether that's power, whether that's well, those are usually one and the same. But specifically, the fact that it's the same types of like think tanks and like moneyed interests pushing
Hmm.
that information down there.
Yeah,
The conservative types up here are getting it from the same sources. I think that's what it is. So as like
yeah,
those information sources down in the states, usually it's vague enough that they can kind of just export that everywhere, and it's kind of like a universal conservative program to kind of educate people on their
hmm
ideology. But I think as it got more and more kind of hyper focused on Trump, that just bled through to every movement kind of that in the English speaking world. I mean, I'm sure you find like wacky Trump supporters in like Britain and shit too, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I think it's what's interesting to me too is, and I don't I credit Trump to this, but it did line up in similar ways. Is like, so we have prominent conservative faces in our country in premiers like Doug Ford and Jason Kenney that came into power since Trump got into power. And it's just like, is there enough of an outcry that we could see similarities in something like this if all of a sudden, say, the next election came around and the NDP were elected? Like, now would these kind of people of Alberta like start to like, well, the Americans did it. Now it's our turn.
yeah, I
Like,
wonder like the same kind of forces were at play when Trudeau won again in 2019,
mm-hmm.
and we saw a little bit. We saw the like driving your fucking truck to Ottawa shit. Like that
Yeah.
was, I think, in the sense that we're a few steps behind. There's been lots of caravans going to Washington for the past few years.
Well, and apparently too, like, I don't know. I just watched a video of like literally these guys were just filming a TikTok outside of the Senate in Ottawa, and like they were being watched from all angles. Like, so
I
like
bet.
maybe things are on high there too of just potentially what could go on because like and it was literally just two dudes like just doing a simple little TikTok like nothing crazy and like they did like a pan around and there was like clearly like eight vehicles within visible distance that were you knew like were like they were black on black
Oh
like
yeah.
yeah they were being watched which is just wild to me like
Go knock on the window. Let's go. We're going for a
yeah
drive.
yeah so, So I don't know. Maybe they're. That could just be the norm there for all I know. Like I have
I
no
know they
idea.
probably ratcheted it up after that one guy shot up Parliament that a
Yeah,
few years back, but I think that's the thing that also is fucking insane. Is like we're all like everybody. I'm the weird tinfoil hat guy. Like I get freaked out. Like I don't have a fucking Alexa or anything in my house. I had the idea of an always on mic. Like I even like when I say things a little more inflammatory, I get freaked out and put my phone in the other room. Like I'm psychotic. But like I always get like, well, this is like for the safety. Like that's why we have surveillance is to like stop extremists and things from happening. And it's like these motherfuckers had shirts printed. Trump tweeted about it December 19th. Like there's how many Facebook groups planning bringing
yeah,
your fucking guns to this thing. You're telling me that didn't trip any of the NSA's algorithms? Like what the fuck are we
yeah.
doing?
I agree. Like that's a whole other interesting area. Like, and it's like how much of it is being missed, or is it a
Intentionally
matter
ignored.
of intentionally ignored? Yeah, like I'm curious.
And like
Like,
this is where I get real tinfoil hatty. Was like maybe now in the wake of this, people will want more surveillance and censorship. And how did they miss this? They need to go harder on that. They need to shut
yeah,
down more and pay attention more to what people are saying in online groups and stuff. And it's just like I don't know.
but and then as a whole, like on our side, is are we questioning it whether it's like, yeah, we don't want those restrictions put on us, or are those restrictions supporting those individuals? So more restrictions are only going to further allow it. Like, and I mean, the restrictions are enough in there enough as it is. So it's
Well,
like
that's the thing. Like they should have been able to.
it
Literally
does.
everybody already knew this was going to happen. Let alone like the fucking
Yeah,
intelligence agencies. Like they had all the information they needed to like act on this, and they didn't. So it's obviously that they just didn't want to. But not everybody else thinks that way. So they might be pushing for more powers for these types of people to prevent these things from happening. And I just see that just being turned around on movements like Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. Right.
totally, absolutely. When yeah, and the unfortunate thing too with the Black Lives Matter, and I don't know how this like. I don't know if the sole intention of this was to immediately like, yeah, we're jumping that while we're going in there. I'm sure several individuals did, but I'm sure a lot of those individuals just showed up to a regular Trump rally
Mm-hmm.
and supported of Trump. But
Definitely.
with the Black Lives Matter thing, that's interesting too, and I'd have to delve more into it. But like thinking about like the LA one, it's just like half of it. I don't even know necessarily if it was Black Lives Matter that were doing all the breaking and entering and looting. It's like I think those are just people taking advantage of a crazy
Mm-hmm.
time. It's just like, well, fuck. If like all hell's going loose, I'm just gonna grab a TV while
Definitely.
I'm
I
at
think
it.
that
Like,
mob mentality stuff kind of when it gets unhinged
yeah,
and everybody's kind of has free license to do whatever. I guess I don't think it discredits a movement if it breaks out into that kind
absolutely
of
not. No,
so
like
and
which,
yeah.
yeah, I
I
don't
did
know.
see people trotting out the I don't know, I think it's is it I don't know if it's Angela Davis, I think. The whole like riots are the language of the unheard. Whenever somebody was posting that in reference to the Trump riots, just like you think you're all unheard? Like you literally have an entire news network devoted to your point of view. Like it's just like
What's the whole
this.
Antifa activists?
Well, they're anti-fascist is what the Antifa stands for, right? So
Because like they're claiming that there's no evidence that it was Antifa activists that
well,
stormed the
that
Capitol.
was kind of as the like kind of conservative media machine realized that this is really bad optics for them. They were kind of cooking, like trying to think up a million different ways to like distance themselves. So it wasn't Trump supporters. It was Antifa dressed up as them doing it, or it was
Oh my god.
yeah, it just they're
Of
desperate for
course, because
anything.
God forbid your people look crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think you're right that most of them just showed up to drive their big truck around and wave the flag and eat a hot dog and scream about Trump. I think, but there has been evidence of like kind of the more extreme actual organizations that showed up. They were ready to do some shit, and I think they probably
Yeah,
kind of took the charge. And you're right that most of them were probably just kind of following along, like, oh, we're doing this, all right, we're doing this, like,
yeah, yeah. No, the whole thing's interesting, and like how it's spreading everywhere as well. Like it just still fascinates me that you can't see a anti-mask rally throughout Canada even without a Trump 2020 flag.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
it's just like, why? How is that two associated items? Like, I just don't get it. And
I
it's
think
like
it all
we live
comes
in
back to that
Canada.
QAnon shit where he's like this messiah that's gonna save the world.
Yeah. I guess I need to understand QAnon more and enough just to talk about it because like I don't fully grasp it. I get some of it.
I don't think anybody does. It's an
Yeah.
expansive, uh, it's quite the interesting worldview. But
Yeah.
that's like, I mean, that's when that was my favorite thing to do there for a bit there this last winter was just get really baked and see what kind of fucking wild rabbit holes I could fall down. Like, what are these people saying now? Like,
Yeah.
basically, like in the Q lore, pretty much every politician you can think of, they're actually a clone. Um, and like that's where all the stuff about like Bill Gates is going to inject us with tracking microchips with the vaccines, and he's in on it with China, and they developed it in a lab, and like all. But there's
And
already different sects, like different sections of QAnon. Like there's already infighting and stuff. It's
yeah.
fucking crazy. I love it. I would love if it didn't get keep people fucking killed. I guess.
Yeah.
It's hilarious in that it's crazy, but then when that online crazy bleeds into the real world, I guess
Well, yeah.
it's not as
I
funny.
guess it's not me understanding too, but it's just like, and I get like the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing falls in line with it. But what's wild to me is that this Trump individual is the hero to these QAnon people. Yet Trump had so many connections to Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah,
So
no,
like,
that's
I don't understand that. Like, so did Clinton's, and then I know Clinton's are like
the
the
big bad of the QAnon universe.
big
Yeah,
bad, yeah. But what makes Trump this person who, oh, like, yeah, that will ignore the fact that he had any involvement with Jeff Epstein? Like, I don't know.
yeah, and that's like the core cognitive dissonance at the heart of it. It's just like all the things that they proclaim to hate. Like basically, it's all the world is run by a global elite of rich pedophiles that like use fake media and the news to brainwash people and like make more money and enslave us. It's just like, okay, honestly, you're not far off. I'm kind of on board. And then actually, though, Trump is gonna stop it. Like, okay,
Yeah.
that's where you fucking lose me. Like, it's just like he is all of these things that these people claim to hate. Trump is the perfect embodiment of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like even beyond like the rich, powerful shit. Like even these guys that complain about snowflakes and complain about lazy people wanting handouts. It's just like this is a dude who was born rich, has never done anything but drink Diet Coke and eat Mountain Dew, and like literally never worked for anything, and then has a meltdown on Twitter if someone says anything bad about him. Like he's just the definition of everything that they claim to hate. But
Yeah. And yeah, that's the part I don't understand whatsoever. Yeah, there's more and more shit that's updating like all the time on here as more shit's going on. Apparently, a
yeah,
bunch of staff have resigned now after these.
yeah, Trump's administration's kind of like bleeding staff now. People like he's essentially this is yeah like the GOP kind of latched onto him as like a vector for support, and then now it's yeah like seeds they sown are being reaped. It's interesting to see where this is going to move forward, and I mean that's kind of the case at any point in history, but we're living through this one, so I'm pretty intrigued. Like we just made fun of the idea of segmenting things into years, but like okay, if this is the beginning of this one, like here we fucking go. Like if this is the continuation of last year's events, I am interested to see where it's going to take us through the rest of the year.
Yeah. Now there's apparently their DS attorney is actively looking into charging Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and Don Jr.
Like inciting a riot.
Yeah.
Nice. They'll have the same charges as Tyler the Creator
I know. I was thinking that same
then.
thing. Like so many rap artists get that charge because of just a concert that gets a little
Gets
too
out of hand, right?
out of hand. It's like, okay, but this had several lives lost and was complete and utter chaos.
Yeah, a Three Doors Down concert out of hand.
Yeah. Oh my god.
No, it's fun. I do. I'm. It's kind of a weird thing, but I do. There's some rumors going around that. I mean, it was crazy enough that some guy was waving a Confederate flag around in like the Capitol building,
Mm.
and there's rumors that this guy's from Alberta, which is like it wouldn't surprise me, but it would be both disappointing and kind of hilarious. Like perfectly encapsulates the average guy around here. But I
The
think
Trump.
that's the thing that really gets me. Sorry, but what should be like a hugely momentous, like symbolic, historic moment, like there was a literal civil war that tore the country apart, and then, so if you tell someone that like the flag of that losing power was waving in the Capitol, you'd think that that was some momentous historical moment, right? But no, it was just some fucking really angry hockey dad. Like
Fuck.
it's just like it meant nothing. It literally meant nothing as far as like historical change.
Yeah.
We're just purely symbolic. It's all just such spectacle divorced from any like material fucking reality.
Now there's video footage of the Trump family hosted a viewing party to watch the terrorist attacks on the U.S. Capitol, and there's like actual like videos of them like dancing and celebrating and yelling and citing it like at it at the TVs. Apparently, Trump was staring at the screen, and just like Don Jr.
Holy
was
shit.
heard in the background yelling "Fight."
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Don Jr. also has been permanently banned on Twitter as well.
Oh, has he?
It was announced, yeah.
God, he wants to fill daddy's shoes so bad, but I don't think he can.
Yeah, well, and this is crazy too. Like Ted Cruz is getting involved in a lot of this. If he's to blame for a lot of this too, and like
Probably.
it's wild. Like the connection. Like I don't know, man. Like I don't know. It's just, I know it's weird to try and connect this situation to Jason Kenney, but it's hard for me not to.
It's not hard. Again, like he's a product of those same kind of influential networks of money
Yeah,
that are responsible for this. They are also responsible for Jason Kenney, and probably in wildly indirect ways. But
and I guarantee the man's a Trump supporter. Like I don't question that whatsoever. Too.
well, that's the thing. These people don't support people. They don't actually believe in anything. They just
Yeah.
believe in whatever thing's convenient at the moment to get them what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see with all these people that were encouraging stop the count to now, well, what did you think? If you told people that there was an attack on their democracy and that someone was stealing their democratically elected leader from them, what did you expect them to do? You can't turn around a month later and be like, actually, that's bad. They shouldn't have done that. It's just like, you made your bed, buddy. Lie in it. Like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even have much more to say on this, man. It's just wild. It's
Not really. It's just
It's kind of sad. It's like I don't know. Like
Happy New Year, everybody.
yeah, what a start, man.
Get ready for more. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think beyond it's, I mean, one might be symptomatic of the other, but yeah, it's in the middle of the pandemic with everyone losing their jobs, like crime is going up in general. And so
Mhm.
people's kind of precarity, desperation is just going to lead to kind of more kind of random violence or just crime in general. But you sprinkle on this weird like ideological division between everyone believing wilder, more and more divergent, wacky things from each other. Kind of more division in that sense. On top of that kind of economic precarity, it's gonna be a fucking powder keg, man. Shit's gonna get crazy.
Well, yeah, and like I think with the COVID situation too, like the last couple weeks, there's been lots of reports of different strains of the virus. Now there's one that's coming out of I want to say Africa that they're deeming may potentially be not included under the vaccines that have been created right now, which is it's weird. Like that's scary for us that are like yay vaccine, but
Yeah.
then all this is doing to that other side, like with that ideological view kind of thing, is it's just like this is exactly what was supposed to happen. This is just their way of keeping us in masks. It's all fake. Like smell the bullshit. Like it's just like it's
Take
crazy.
off your mask and smell the bullshit.
Yeah, like it's just like I don't know. I don't even know. It's unfortunate. I think it's gonna be a rough year if I'm being completely honest. Like I don't think it's gonna get any better.
I guess my take on this is you kind of have to have a balanced approach. You can't get too emotionally invested in this stuff and think the world's literally ending. Like we're gonna have like a right wing revolution. It's not gonna happen. Like that's not anywhere in the near future. Like don't exaggerate and like kind of I can't think of the word like hyperbolize things, catastrophize things.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you can't downplay it either. Like you don't want to retreat in your own little comfortable bubble too much. You should stay aware of what's happening, try to understand the world around you, but you can't get caught up too much into it or you're going to go fucking crazy. So,
Yeah.
moving
No.
into the new year, like, pay attention, but also distance yourself, but not too much either way, kind of thing. Like, at the end of the day, there's not much we can fucking do about this.
No, I mean a lot of it is American stuff too, but
Yeah,
it's
even American stuff aside, like, things happening within Canada, there isn't much you can do. Like, you can't argue with people out of their points of view. Like, this idea that if you just post the right memes, the right tweets, that people are going to view things differently, I don't think that's the case. And I mean, I have all of my other complaints about the Alberta NDP, but that is one thing that it seems like they're focusing so much on their fucking Facebook game
mhm.
that it's just like, are you guys like engaging with voters in this province at all? Are you trying to reach out to new people, or are you trying to get lots of likes from people that already follow you? Like,
Yeah. It's interesting. I just stumbled across there's a whole Conservative Party trending thing on Twitter right now that's comparing uh, like the Conservative Party in Canada to the American bullshit and how so many of their elected officials throughout the country have like known photos of them wearing like Make
MAGA hats
America
and shit.
mega hats and yeah, it's wild.
Well, yeah, and like that's what I mean. It's a mix of like like, kind of absorb all the same like media and pop culture as them, and a mix of like the people kind of like pushing certain ideas are literally just the same people down there and up here.
Yeah.
It's the same money pushing the same shit.
I don't. Yeah, and then they have this. Aaron O'Toole apparently is like sharing this whole Justin Trudeau is rigging the next election in his favor thing
Oh boy.
that's trending.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
it's gonna be fun. Well, I mean, he literally what more dog whistly, and I mean, I hate that word. Everybody says everything's a dog whistle now. But the fact is, they do use them. You know, some of these more unfavorable types do use them to signal to their base, but the whole take Canada back is troublesome to me. His
Mm-hmm.
whole new, I don't know if he's using it still, but that was kind of his slogan at first, was we got to take Canada back. Well, from who, Aaron?
Oh God, I just clicked on this tweet from Aaron O'Toole. The storming of the Capitol building is an astonishing assault on freedom and democracy. I'm
Mm.
deeply saddened to see chaos grip our greatest ally today. And then I see you've responded to this tweet. And
Oh, did I?
it just came up like me clicking on his tweet originally.
Nice.
Yeah,
What did I say?
you posted a meme, the Dwight Schrute one, Canadians
Oh
laughing
yeah.
at mega freaks storming Capitol, and then the fuck what's it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
what I mean. Like that's the whole that Wexit people. Those are the people. Those are
Yeah,
our QAnon types.
absolutely, yeah. It's crazy, but you're 100% true, and yeah, I don't know.
It's gonna be fun.
I could go on about Wexit forever.
Yeah, no, and I think, yeah, I'm sure they will be a recurring theme. So we
Yeah,
might even have to do an episode on them.
yeah, we'll definitely have a follow up to this. I'm sure this is just the beginning.
This is
So,
just the beginning.
but
Yeah. In that case,
sign
I
off.
gotta eat some food and get ready for night shifts here, guys. So
Yeah, let's
yeah,
sign off.
thanks for listening this far. If you did, if not, fuck you, because I'm gonna say that because you can't even hear it.
Yeah,
No, I'm just joking. I get it. But yeah, if you did, make sure to share it.
yeah. Give a like,
Spread the
subscribe,
word if you're digging it. Give us some of the signal to the algorithm that you liked it, so that it bumps us up. But
and stay tuned. We got some exciting stuff coming up, and
yeah, you're gonna get some more high effort content in the future. So
yeah,
look forward to that.
yeah, same. But on that note, see you later,
Yeah.
folks.
See you next week.